Alright, making a change of pace video, economics video, yay, QE. So, we'll see where the comments take me. I appreciate it, with 4 comments, but 2 of them by the same person, but look, it's better than nothing. So, and there's some of them are so general that I could just talk forever on some of them, right? So, Steve-O guy, let's see, everyone misunderstands money and debt. They think it's part of economics. Well, yeah, I'll play that. It isn't. I think they're stupid. And it's an aspect of the legal system in relation to laws about ownership. Well, I mean, not to concede that ownership is part of economies. It's kind of silly, right? You know, and the laws about ownerships in terms of, you know, income derived and protection and, you know, all that kind of stuff is all kind of important. The idea, I think, really, it's an important idea, is the idea of what does debt do? You know, is it a good way to stimulate activity, or is that rental idea a bad idea in the sense that we end up paying people not for working but for accruing surplus? So surplus now all of a sudden becomes your best employee. You know, the best human, you know, the wealthiest, the best humans, the humans with the most prosperity are surplus. You know, that's sort of the irony of it, is that we're paying the most income to inanimate objects that have been monetized and are receiving an income. So if you could look at it that way, that the surplus is a slave to the owner derives profit from its slaves, and obviously what you subsidize, what you pay, is what you get more of. And so it's not a good system. Anyway, yeah, moving on. If we can get the Republicans to agree to massive infrastructure stimulus program, wouldn't that legitimately grow the economy? Well, that's the whole question, right? Stimulus program financed with debt. Well, that wouldn't be too good, because then you're paying rent, and unless you pay the debt off, you'll pay rent forever on that stimulus. So again, I could go back to World War II. We never paid off World War II technically, so you could argue that some of those tanks we paid $956 million, you know, for a $50,000 tank. You know, I mean, that's called sucker. So anyway, I just don't, you know, it's a bad way to grow the economy, because all you're growing, if it's on debt, you know, if it's on, you have to pay interest, you know, all that growth is going to be taxed, and so it's the growth of the credit card. It just isn't a good idea. The interest rates are too high in the end. Also, reducing income inequality in general will increase the purchasing power of the common American. Again, you're not going to increase, you're not going to decrease or reduce income inequality if you're paying rich people to borrow money. Think about it. Boosting consumption and driving demand, which will in turn lead to increased hiring, reducing unemployment as business picks up. But again, what kind of business do we pick up if we don't target the money really, really well? So that's another problem here. So they just did this stimulus, okay, called quantitative easing, the subject of this video that I'm responding to these comments on. And this quantitative easing is just money dumped into Mr. Rich's hand. I mean, it wasn't like we bought bonds from people like Joe American. We bought bonds from people who own surplus. So what do you think they did with the money? Okay, they bought some other security, making people who own securities wealthier because it increases the value of their securities. So what part of the economy do you think you're stimulating with that kind of approach? Well, the only part is the service economy at best. If the rich believe they're richer, they'll spend more on fancier plant trimmings and such. They'll waste more money on crap work that does the general population of the country absolutely no good. They'll pave their driveway. They'll do kind of crap shit that won't do you or I any good whatsoever. It'll have no socially redeeming value. The work will have no infrastructure enhancement value. It's crap. And so that's what we just spent $3.5 trillion in crap investment, enhancement. And the trick is they have to take that money back out of the economy. And it won't be like the typical debt, right? So when the U.S. government usually issues a bond, what happens? Well, the good news is, right, is that, you know, if it's $1 trillion worth of bonds, is that $1 trillion goes into the economy to buy stuff. And usually the government buys stuff that it needs, like Medicare, health care, all kinds of social services. So those are all good for all of us because it builds hospitals and does all that shit. All right? But what's going to happen when they issue this $3.5 trillion in debt? When they put this debt back on the market? Where's the money going to go? Oh, that's right, there isn't going to be any money. The money's going to go into the digit pile of the bankers. It's technically their money. They made the digits. The only way to undo those digits is to replace them with cash. They'll take the cash. It's plain and simple. And so there will be no infrastructure enhancement. There'll be no nothing. There'll be absolutely no investment of that bond money. So we're basically going to have the negative of putting a instrument on the market that will consume resource cash, and there'll be no expenditure. There'll be no commensurate expenditure. So it's negative, negative. So they basically played a game to double the positive of issuing cash without technically issuing it. So it was a positive in the sense they had no debt, so there's no liability, and they had the stimulus activity by taking securities off the market and creating the illusion of wealth. And the downside is when they have to do the opposite, when they have to undo what they did, okay, there's not going to be any economy that's strong enough to withstand the pain they're going to impose. And there's no prospect that any time in the future our economy, now that we've invested in more service economy, is going to be in any shape to withstand it. So it's going to be basically the downfall. There's going to be no way to do it. There's going to be no time they're going to say, let's pay back this QE debt we owe. So I think the writing's on the wall. This ain't going to work. They're going to have to sit there and either print the cash to pay it, or if they don't, and they issue bonds, they're going to have to issue them at a high, huge premium. Or they're going to have to substantially raise taxes. I don't see any one of those things happening. Not without huge penalties to the artificial growth of the economy. The fake sense of we're winning, we're doing okay. No, we're not doing okay, and we're going to find out we're not doing okay when they try to undo what they did here. So Mariana says, infrastructure stimulus would be a big help. Again, big help, how do you pay for it? You don't want to pay for it. So how's it going to help? Borrow the money? Is that a good idea? Borrowing money is a good idea? One kind of inflation the Fed has not reached is wage inflation. I don't even know what... one kind of inflation the Fed has not reached is wage inflation. I don't even understand what that means. Obviously, wages aren't inflating. The only wages going up are the wages for surplus. You know, the wages for a silo of wheat are going way up. Silos of wheat are getting paid big bucks. Human beings are getting paid shit. I don't know whether you've seen the papers. I don't know whether you've looked at your neighbor's checkbook. Shit. Well, I don't know about your neighbors. Who knows where you live? Fancy Pants Street. QE can't do anything about that. Only Congress can. Only Congress can do something about wage inflation. I just don't even understand what that means. And what would Congress do? Holding my breath, turning blue. Just can't say anything to that. Yeah, I don't know what to say to that. I mean, the only inflation I think that has any validity is wage inflation. If you're going to have inflation, I want inflation caused by wage inflation. That's the best inflation you can have, is wage inflation that causes inflation in the economy, because as long as the wage inflation stays higher, as it did in the 60s and 70s and 80s, then the inflation in commodities, workers are winning. Good. Workers should win. Owners should drop the fuck dead. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's just, the owners are useless. I know you're never going to understand that, but they are of no value to the human race. Yes, we agree that QE is a very desperate measure. Well, at least we got that right. The debt instruments purchased by the Fed are supposed to be the AAA kind. Yeah, well, whatever. Not the junk. Whether that's actually the case, who knows? Well, I think we already know it's not the case, because we already had a whole bunch of controversies about these ratings. But I don't know whether it really matters. I guess all I'm saying is what's the expectation that what we bought we bought low and we're going to sell high? What's the expectation that the stuff the federal government bought was a really good deal? I mean, they got something. They got like IBM right before they introduced the 286 computer. You know, what's the odds of that? What do you think the odds are? That we bought something, we bought Apple when it was still just a seed. Yeah, you think? No, I don't think we did. I think we bought overpriced crap. And whether it's got a AAA rating or not, it's crap. Yeah, and we're not going to sell it even for what we paid for it. Let alone resell it at the same price. We're going to sell it for a loss. And somebody's going to have to make that up. So anyway, I guess I think this explanation is as solid can be. QE is a stimulus program, nothing more. It's a stimulus of, there's no rational reason to believe it stimulates anything other than the service economy. It makes the rich richer, quite directly, by taking instruments that only rich people own and making them more valuable. It's like buying a bunch of gold. If the United States went out and bought a bunch of gold, obviously all the people holding gold would be richer, right? Right. Everybody can understand that. The price of gold would go up. And when they have to sell this stuff, what's going to happen? So it's like if I have a whole bunch of gold, like say I'm the Russians in whatever, 85 or something, they did that, I remember, and they just sold a ton of gold onto the market, crashed the gold market, somewhere around there. And so what's going to happen when we put $3.5 trillion of crap back on the market, for which we are going to get no increase in spending, no money coming in, no cash that we can use. It's cash to undo reserve digits. It's going to be cash that has to be consumed, undoing the fake digits we put into the banks. It was fake digits going out. There were fake digits that went out. The fake digits have to be erased. So digits have to come in, and we have to erase the digits that the bank created. So we're going to have to basically burn the cash. Burn it. Yeah. It's like if I could burn gold, you know, I could throw gold in a fire and burn it. You can understand, gold goes up in price, right? There's less gold in the world. Well, there's going to be less digits in the world when those $3.5 trillion in digits have to be put where they're supposed to be, okay, which is in non-existence. Yeah, there's really no other. I've done it. All right, it can't be. I mean, maybe it could be said a little more articulately, but it couldn't be said more directly what took place here. Fake digits were created, you know, to buy securities, and they can get away with it because they don't need the cash immediately. They can afford to have fake digits on the books because they're backed by the Federal Reserve's made-up digits. And it all is fine until somebody says, I need the cash. And so they've got to resell this crap before somebody says, I need the cash. And if they don't sell it before somebody says, I need the cash, holy shit. Yeah, you just made the brick wall out of the hardest titanium ever synthesized. You're just guaranteed more than one fatality. I don't know how to describe. You just guaranteed this accident's going to be one for the records. Yeah, okay. Enough said.